So I view my role as a lawmaker as representing my community and my constituents, and that does mean listening. But I like hearing from constituents because I want to know what they are thinking. I have, on more than one occasion, been convinced to change my mind based on constituent input. The other skill I have as being a former judge is listening to all sides and taking in the information and using that information to then make my best judgment as to what I think is best for both the community, the city of Saco, and the state of Maine. I know that working together and working across the aisle doesn't necessarily make the headlines. You know, what the newspapers more often report is when there are disagreements and when there are fights in Augusta, but I have found that there's a lot of bipartisan work that's done, and I have worked with my colleagues across the aisle on lots of important legislation. I do have a saying that I believe in, which is I don't care where an idea comes from. If it's a good idea, I will support it. Most seniors live on a fixed income. Unfortunately, their property taxes generally go up every year. So I wanted to try to find a way to allow seniors who were having difficulty paying their property taxes to be able to have those property taxes be paid and allow seniors to remain in their homes. So I introduced legislation that would revise a system that was in place in the late 1980s, early 1990s, where the state pays for the property taxes and the senior can stay in their home. The bill passed unanimously out of the Taxation Committee, so it had bipartisan support out of committee. It then also passed unanimously in both the House and the Senate. So I was very pleased and heartened that it had bipartisan support. So I was very honored to be asked by the mayor of Saco to serve on a committee he formed called the Senior Tax Abatement Committee to look at our efforts in the city to help seniors pay their property taxes. With the help of the Coastal Caucus, I was able to put in a House resolution that was passed unanimously that recognized the benefits that Camp Ellis provides to the state and to put pressure on the federal government to fund and fix the issue with the jetty by supporting an installation of a spur jetty to slow down the erosion. Well, I was very honored to be appointed as the chair of the subcommittee that was looking at updating and revising the Maine probate code. The Maine probate code hasn't been updated for almost 40 years. It turned out to be a 400-page bill with a 200-page amendment. We came up with a document that updated the probate code that increased protections for people with disabilities and elderly people who go under guardianship, and in particular giving them more independence and more say over their lives when they're under guardianship. We also tightened the protections for children who come under minor guardianships. And I have to say, nowadays with the opioid crises, there are more and more children who are being raised by relatives. And so that's where a minor guardianship would come into play. So another example of working across the aisle is I was approached by a Republican senator in a leadership role to introduce legislation about something that I am very passionate about, which is access to justice. I fully believe that everyone should have access to justice, whether you live in Portland, Maine, or you live in Madawaska, Maine. And so this bill was to give a tax credit to lawyers who agreed to live and work in rural Maine, in areas that are underserved and where people do have difficulty accessing justice because there simply aren't lawyers who are willing to practice in the community. It has been a great honor and privilege to serve the people of Saco, and I hope to have your vote in November.